วัสดีค่ะ Good morning and welcome everyone to Open Talk. Our honorable guest today is a gentleman who spent many years abroad and had long-term experience in both traditional local organizations and global technology giants like Line, Google. Let's start in welcoming พี่บีคุณอาริยะพนมยงค์ the CEO and founder of Transformational. สวัสดีค่ะพี่บี
สวัสดีครับ
ค่ะ Welcome to Open Talk, the program under OPEN-TEC Technology Sharing Platform powered by TCC Technology Group. After the third wave of COVID-19 in Thailand, how are you doing?
Very busy. Working from home is I actually have more work than ever before because there's no lag time. All the meetings are back to back. This morning I started at 8 a.m. And I'm not going to stop until like 7 p.m.
Oh, continuous working.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's good because you don't have to waste time traveling. It's bad because there's no downtime.
Let's start with your background. You born and live in France, and then why did you decide to be back to Thailand?
It's two very one very simple reason. I came back to because of my wife to get married. So I always say that there are not that many reasons for a guy to move from one country to the other, and that's probably the biggest motivation. And at the same time, it's always been a dream for me to come back to Thailand. Because I was born in France. I had never studied or lived in Thailand before I came back when I was in 2001 when I was 28. So it was also always part of my plan to come back to Thailand. My home is France, but it's also Thailand, and I've always wanted to come back.
Okay, so you have good reason to come back to Thailand because of the family business and also the you inspired to be back home, right?
Yes.
To Thailand.
And I was fortunate enough that when I wanted to come back, that's when Orange was. If you all remember Orange, back in 2001 when they launched. Well, it was good timing for me to come back.
Okay.พี่บีคะ how's your feeling for the first time working with Thai people? How did you manage to adjust and any trick to adapt your experience to work well with the Thai culture?
So I have to say, if you look at me, obviously I'm Thai. I look Thai, but when I came back, I was like, kind of a Falang in some ways. So and because I had never studied, never worked in Thailand, it was a bit of a, to be honest, it was a culture shock. Very, very different. I was used to working with, French people, European people, and other nationalities where discussions are very, straightforward. You don't agree, you debate. You want to scream at each other, whatever. It's like it's fine, it's normal, right? But when I came back, my first few meetings, it's as you probably all know, we're not confrontational, right? We don't debate strongly in meetings or disagree. We don't want to make anyone lose face, right? So that's something I learned very early, especially when I came back. There was there's one story I always tell and I will always remember. I came back on the 17th of May 2001, and the reason why I remember that date so precisely, it's because I flew down, I touched down in Bangkok 17th morning. Afternoon, I started my first meeting, and in my first meeting, were probably like 10 people in a meeting room, and Orange was was preparing to launch back then. And I asked a question in a meeting because we were working with some vendors that I had previous experience before when I was in Europe, and they didn't have quite a good reputation, right? And so I asked, like, who chose that vendor, and the entire meeting room went quiet, and I knew I did something wrong, but I didn't know what then. And when I walked out the meeting room, some people approached me, came and talked to me. So that was my first sort of a working culture experience. I realized that, for me, it was just a question that I just wanted to know. But the way it was perceived is like, it was like, who chose these vendors? It's like I was pointing at someone saying, someone did something wrong, and no one wanted to say, oh, it was me. It wasn't my intention, but that's how it was perceived, right? So that I mean, it was good in a way, because it kind of set the scene for me to understand, okay, I can't do that here. It's not going to work, right? So it took me a bit of time. It took me a year to really adapt and learn how to work in a different cultural environment.
Okay, so you have to adapt your experience to work more with Thai culture, right?
Yeah. And it's not a and just to be clear, it's not a criticism, because you go and work in any country, every country will have a very different style, right? So you just have to learn and adjust to that. You're not going to change the way, I mean, you can hope for that, but I think it's unlikely that you're going to change how how a whole company or how a whole country is used to work, right? You have to adapt to that.
And then the next one is about the role model. Any role models that lead to be you today? What's your beliefs and philosophy in your life and work?
Yes. So I have my role model and my inspiration has always been my grandfather, Kun Pridi นะฮะ and for the audience who may not know about him, so he has history with the country นะฮะ but beyond that, if you look more specifically about my work, my personal life, I would say I have different inspirations, different role models. I try to learn from everyone around me. It sounds vague, but the way I think about it is, if there's someone I meet and I feel that is inspiring or is very good at doing something that I would like to be able to do as well, then I'm gonna try to learn from that person, either directly or indirectly. Directly by by talking to that person, or indirectly by sort of searching information and more about this person. But the point is, learning is important. You're never going to be the best. There's always someone who's going to be better than you, right? And to keep on learning, I think it's my philosophy, right? At every level you get to in your professional career, if you want to move up another level, you need to learn, right? You need to learn. You can learn by yourself, but you can learn from others. And I've been very fortunate that I've always been surrounded by by mentors, by what we call puyai, who have been good to me to help me, to show me the way, to guide me, to be almost my people I could consult with. And I think it's important because it's about the attitude that you have. If you open people, you will find people who are willing to share their knowledge and to teach you. Right? And that's my philosophy for work. If you look at my philosophy for my personal life, it's very simple. It's everything is centered around my family. My children. It's everything. I don't need much more than that, and that's plenty. So that's all I need to sort of to be happy. People. I don't want to get into philosophical debate, but happiness can be very simple. Don't be greedy. Don't you don't need like supercars and well, obviously it's nice to have, but you don't need that to be happy. You just need your family, and that's as simple.
Okay, so you have role model in they are the people surrounding you. So you for your work you keep on learning, right? And one of them is ท่าน Prithy Panomyong. That
Yes.
is one of your role model. And for your life, it seems like the family first, right?
Yes, very much.
Okay. And the next question is about leadership. What did you learn the most when working with Line and Google? What did you find in common, difference, the pros and cons in this technology and digital world, and how did you leverage that?
So I think obviously, now we live in this technology era, right? Everything is about technology. The largest companies in the world are all tech companies right now, right? So I was fortunate enough to get into the tech space when in 2011 when I first joined Google. Then I joined Line in 2015. So when I joined Google, and it's important that let me put a little bit of context around this. 2011, the internet population in Thailand was around 10 million people. Today we had 55 million users. So you have to think back a little bit how it was back in 2011, right? And funny enough, back in 2011, a lot of my time was actually spent trying to convince C-levels that the internet was coming. 2011. 2011.
Okay.
Today it sounds very obvious, but you have to go back just a few years to think that people were sometimes I would get like C-levels telling me like, oh, okay, yeah, go talk to my marketing team or go talk to my digital team, because that was not a priority. It wasn't a priority back then. It wasn't so long ago. So I just want to show how much the world has changed in the span of like what 10 years. It's a short time, and that's things have changed like super fast. But to your point, what I really learned about Google is how to build a business, and I learned a lot about mindset. Being at Google for 4 years and a half was, I always say, it was an MBA on steroids. One of the best learning experience, because the way Google operates it's very, very different. You used to organization where it's top down, right? CEO says do 1, 2, 3, and everyone says okay, that's what we're going to do. When I joined Google, first day I opened the door to the office, there was like there was there was just me, right?
Oh.
I was yeah, it was like you know starting the office of Google in Thailand, and there was no one to tell me like as the country head of Google in Thailand, what was my job. My boss
Mhm.
in Singapore, you know, his job was not to tell me what I was supposed to do. What he
Mhm.
was expecting is for me to go back to him and say, okay, back then my boss, his name was Julian, here's the plan for Thailand. Here's how we're going to grow the business. So very, very different. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, you take ownership. And that's the biggest learning. It's how to own, how to lead, and not to wait. Right? So
Mhm.
there's no one who was going to tell me, Ariya, this is what you need to do. It was my job. Uh,
Mhm.
so it was an amazing experience. And then when you work in an environment like Google, I'm sure people have heard stories, but it's a company that where you're surrounded by really like amazing amazing people, like I would say like top
Mhm.
performers, because there's a almost a natural selection that you know they will retain or pay a lot more attention or reward people who perform, right?
Mhm.
If you don't perform, you're not honestly you're not going to survive in a company like this. It's performance driven, and that's a
Mhm.
reality. Everyone always focuses on the nice office, the free lunch, the perks, and whatnot. That's the tip of the iceberg. But the reality
Mhm.
is, tech companies are performance-driven cultures and company.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's one thing that you need to understand. Not everyone is going to enjoy that kind of environment.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
don't just look at these tech companies to the bells and whistles of the nice office and the amazing perks and whatnot. There's a flip side to that. You need to deliver and you need to perform. That's the
Mhm.
expectation. And so that's what I've learned. That culture of performance. Uh,
Mhm.
so that was my experience at Google. And then
Mhm.
then at Line was very, very different. It was different because back then, again, today is like you look at Line has 47 million users in Thailand. uh,
Mhm.
People always think that he was easy. No, it wasn't. You have to go back again, like back in 2015 when I joined. Like Line was yes, the service was exploding, was on the rise. Everyone was like love the stickers, love to chat. We're still using it, but you have to realize that back then Line was an underdog.
Mhm.
What I mean by this is Line was a very young company, and even today is still a young company when you compare to like a Google or Facebook and other companies. So the question is like, when you how do you compete? You know, and back then, when I say Line was an underdog, obviously there was very strong user adoption, but what's the business? What are we trying to build? How do we build a team? Because I can tell you back in 2015, if you have a choice between joining like Google, Facebook, or Line, everyone would pick Google and Facebook because people
Mhm.
didn't know who's Line as an employer, you know. And there was this perception, oh, is it a Japanese company? Is it a Korean company? Which is like the which is very it's a different environment. Some people were almost afraid, like how is it to work with Japanese people or Korean people. So it took time to actually build the business, to build the team. So again, it's like don't look at today's success, you have to go back and see where we started from. But that was the amazing thing, is to be able to build all this, to build the culture, to build the team, to build the services, and what was very different from Google is, in order to win, the approach that Line took that was different from other tech companies that tend to be very centralized. The decision making is centralized, tend to be centralized in the US, in Cupertino, Palo Alto, or Mountain View, right? But for Line, we were our strategy was to be hyper local. So everything we did in every country, my focus was to build new services for Thailand, right? And if you compare to other tech companies, like let's say Google, where I came from, every services, you press a button, goes to 60 countries, So there's no like, oh, we're going to do this for Thailand, we're going to do this for this country. No. Scale was about, how do you scale to the entire world? Line was different. It's like, in order to be competitive and to move faster, let's be hyper local, because that's the one thing that the other guys couldn't do. And that's how we came up with services like Line TV, Line Man, and Line Today, just specifically for Thailand. And so we could move a lot faster. And so we had the flexibility, we had the freedom, we had the budget, we had the mandate to build these services, to build the business for Thailand. So that was my focus, and very different experience, but it was an amazing experience because we got to build stuff, to build services.
Okay, so you got amazing experience from these companies. Phoebe, why did you switch to work with the Thai company?
So I always say that I go backwards. I've worked with international global companies, moved to working with an Asian company, an Asian tech company like Line, and then I decided to move to work for a Thai company. So I went from global to Asian to Thai. Now, usually you go the other way, and the reason, my motivation was, I think I learned a lot from Google, and I felt that, when I joined Line, it was about time that we should see Asian tech companies. Again, today you have Line, you have Grab, you have you have C, you have lots of Asian tech companies. But again, go back in 2015, right? It was very early days. We didn't have like big tech companies yet in Asia. Like now it seems like forever, but it was just like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so what I wanted to be able to contribute is how could I be a part of building an Asian tech company. That's why I went from global to Asian, because I felt that we as Asian could do it as well as US tech companies, right? And we know this region better. And for similar reasons, what I wanted to see is, well, after talking about disruption, transformation, innovation for so many years, and seeing a lot of like Thai companies like trying or struggling, could I go on the other side and say, well, now, because I've been on the disruptor side, it's like we've disrupted businesses. Now going on the disrupted side, can you can I reverse, or can I help a business, a more traditional business, turn around and survive and embrace the the disruption. And so yeah, I just wanted to, it was both a personal challenge, but it was also my way to also try to help Thai companies. Yeah. So that was my motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out, by the way.
Okay, so the reason why you switched to Thai company is because you would like to apply the knowledge about the transformation
Yeah.
to the real cases, right? And even Phoebe, I know that you are successful so much, and do you ever feel down, and how you recover and bounce back?
Oh yeah, you know, I'm like everybody else. You have your moments when not everything is rosy. Uh, uh, for me, bouncing back is I just need to come home. It's my center, my what I call my north is my family, my kids. I come home, I see them, and that's it. It's like it's cleared my head, right? That's all I need. The other thing I need is actually sports. Sports is my other medicine that I cannot live without. It's a way to take the stress out. So I'm family and sports. That's all I need to recover.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good for our audience because if when they feel down, they can like go back home and also have some kind of sport, right? To play, and then it should be
Yeah,
better. Yeah.
it's like the way to think about it is part of part of our jobs, unfortunately, is to solve problems. So it's
Mm-hmm.
never as long as you work, it's probably never going to stop, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at some point you need to park this for at least a couple of hours, and then you go back at it tomorrow morning. Right? Hopefully, with a fresh mind, you'll have a better ideas on what to do next. But yeah, you need to take a break sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Really, the next question is why did you gain so much trust from many leading organizations like the board of Pamelo, the digital transformation for Siam Piwat, and etc. What did you plan to make it happen in this organization?
Uh, so I think again, it's like when we talk about trust, you need to go back, right? It's not something that happens overnight, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yes, people might see announcements and news, but it doesn't happen. It's not easy. It takes time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just started, being invited to join boards like just probably like few years ago, uh, and like I said earlier, it's something that I I wanted to learn about, you know. So you get to a point where you become, the CEO of a company, and then the next step for me, right? I want to, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone, or it might not be your motivation, but I've always wondered, like, you know, what's what does a board do? You know, it sounds like it sounds like a stupid question, but let me ask you, like, those people who are listening right now, my question to you is, like, do you know how a board works? You know, do you know what's the role of a board, right? And I wanted to understand that. And so when I want to understand something, I think the best thing you can do is actually be a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you make that happen? So uh, uh, and it's, you know, it's part of your profile, your experience, getting to engage with, you know, more senior people, on what can you bring, you know, how can you help them, and if there's value, then obviously, you know, people, not obviously, but you might get invited to join, a board, right? But for me, it was mainly about, you know, I wanted to, you know, obviously I joined a board and the expectation is for me to help, but actually my expectation is for me to learn, right? I want to learn from, understand, you know, that business I'm joining as a board member, but I also want to be able to learn from the people sitting at that table, you know, because people who are part of the board, they've been selected. They, you know, they're supposed to be, you know, top-notch profiles, and you know, it's a great experience to be able to engage with them, because these are people you might look at, yes, these are probably, older than, you know, older than you and I, they're older than you and I, but you know, they have a lot of experience, and you know, they got to this point for a reason, and for me, it's like to be able to learn from these people. It's what I'm. It's also why I'm there for. So it's not just, yes, my job is to be able to contribute and help, but I'm also there to learn about the business and about board members, and other senior people. Uh, Learning is, you know, it's, if you listen to our talk, it's a, I think it's a recurring theme for me. It's like, how do you keep on learning? You know, there's so much happening that, uh, that you cannot stand still, right? I think today it's like there's you know, if you don't learn anything new, like regularly every day, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's I don't see how it works. Uh-huh. So I don't know how other people think, but that's my philosophy.
Okay, so you keep on learning, and that's interesting. I, Phoebe, I follow you in the pitching room on Clubhouse. Could you please explain the purpose of that room and the challenge of the Thai startup versus startup in other countries, the key elements to success, and what contribute to the path to unicorn?
Okay. So for maybe for the audience who doesn't know what we did in Clubhouse. So we a bunch of, we yeah, I think I would say a bunch of friends, people who've known each other for a very long time, through work and whatnot in the tech community. So it's a mix of, you know, tech leaders, VCs, accelerators, and so we all in tech. Yeah. And one day, like, you know, a couple of months ago, just during COVID, one of us, you know, was in Clubhouse, and there was a room, that was called Deal No Deal, from in the US. And Deal No Deal was basically for startups, for foreign startups, to go into that room and say, "Here's my pitch," and deal no deal, right? And the people in that room would say, "Okay, we're gonna invest," right? And so the idea was like, you know, why don't we do something like that for Thailand? And we're just talking, like, I remember, like, uh, I think it was, during one of the long weekend. I was in Hua Hin, someone was in Pattaya, another one was in Samui, and we were just chatting, saying, "Oh, let's do that." It was on a Saturday, and on a Monday we just started. So we created this, deal no deal room on Clubhouse that we did like every Monday for a few weeks. And so the point was for, Thai startups to come in and pitch us. You had 3 minutes to pitch us. And if we liked it, then we would put some seed money in. So not a lot of money, but we would put in some money to invest in your startup. And so the point of this was not so much about the money that we would invest, but it was more also to provide feedback to startups who came to pitch. And so we did that from 9 p.m. to midnight for 3 hours straight. Every Monday we would cover around like about 10 startups. And so the point of this was basically to help. Right? We are all in this community, and we're all dreaming of seeing Thai startups becoming like a so-called unicorn or really successful. Because if you look at Southeast Asia right now, you have a unicorn in every country, right? So obviously in Singapore has the highest number. You have Sea, you have Grab, and whatnot. Indonesia, you have Traveloka. You have lots of players in all the countries except in Thailand. So it's our aspiration, it's our dream to see a Thai startups becoming successful, not just in Thailand, but across the region. And so that's what we, in our own way, trying to contribute to.
Okay, that's very good. Pimi, you also invest in Scout Out. Could you please explain about it and how is it different from others like JobDB?
So actually, I'm the group I was mentioning before. We all like angel investors. I think the biggest angel investor in Thailand is probably Pampawut from Talat.com. I think he's got like almost 30 startups under his belt that he's invested in. Me, I have like almost, I think I have 10. Scout is one of my investments. So what they do is they are an HR tech startup. And so what's different from the likes of JobDB or others? These are classifieds where basically the typical way is you go in and you post and you search. It's that's the traditional way, but being using technology to do matching. What Scout has developed is an engine to match skills, the skills and the job. So it's not a human doing that. It's the machine doing that. So it's crunching like the skills that you have and saying what's the best match with the jobs in the database. So that's how how Scout Out was born. But obviously out of COVID, well, it's not we're not out of COVID yet, but I would say during COVID, Scout Out had to adapt, because obviously if you look at the job market right now, it's flat, right? And unfortunately a lot of companies are actually downsizing their operations, their people, right? So it's not so much a recruitment market right now, and the market has changed. So it's not, the focus is not so much on recruitment, but now it's more about reskilling, right? And so when we saw that, the team at Scout Out saw an opportunity to what we call pivot, right? To say, well, people are not focusing on recruiting right now. Well, actually, it's not entirely true, but let me get to that point. But the demand right now is about how do you reskill the existing people that you have in your organization to be more digital, to understand e-commerce, to understand digital marketing, to understand data, to understand design thinking, to understand product. So all these skill sets that are very new to a lot of traditional organizations. So this is where we pivoted and saying, okay, how can we help reskill people in this organization? Because the thinking is this: if you're able to reskill, then you're also building a pipeline of talent that later on will be recruited by other companies. So one thing that we realized is that HR tech and ed tech actually go hand in hand. Ed tech is about building the supply, right? And HR tech is the demand side. So as you build people with this new skill set, then you feed them to companies who want to hire. And so that's how we positioning Scout Out right now. We connecting the supply and the demand. And so that's how we've adapted throughout COVID. And very soon Scout Out will be announcing that they've just closed a deal with a learning / education company, because they share the same vision as we do, that they're strong on the education side, we're strong on the HR side. How do we bridge this? Yeah.
Okay. ค่ะ Vivi, what's your advice for the young generation who want to succeed really fast, as they have to unlearn and relearn the new things at all times? Should they care to gain the working experience?
I'm 47 this year. Yes, I'm 47. I don't want to say there's no shortcut or there's no fast way, because there are young entrepreneurs that who are very successful. You have an example would be like Top from BitCup, very young, successful. You have a few young entrepreneurs, but so I think it's great to look up to these young entrepreneurs as an inspiration. But again, it's like, for every success you see, there are also failures, right? And that's something that we tend to also forget. It's like when you go online, you see people who are able to sell like so many things, but you don't see all the sellers who are not successful, and you have a lot of them. So I think it's important that you always have to look at both sides of the coin. Yes, look at the successes for inspiration, but also learn from failures, right? Because the path to success, I would guarantee that it will go through failures, right? So I think that would be my advice, to young generation. It's like you always see the shiny stuff, right? But what you don't see is like the effort that it's taken to get there, because we're always going to tell you about, if you read the media, you read the press, if you read like anything online, it talks a lot about successes, but not a lot of people are telling you about the failures, right? And there's a lot, right? And I can tell you, like, if you look at COVID, like how many, the reality is how many businesses are going to die or are dying, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. The road to success is, it's not a straight it's not a straight path. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but you also have to realize that COVID is going to impact. It's going to have an impact on all the businesses, but it's also going to have a big impact on the younger generation, the reason why I say on the younger generation is right now, because if you look at the stage of the job market, it's going to be difficult or challenging for young graduates to find a job because there's there are fewer openings, much fewer openings. The unemployment rate is rising, so this is a reality. So like I said, I don't want to be pessimistic, but you just need to be. You also have to be aware of that. But if you look at the brighter side, I think if you want to have a chance at being successful, what should you focus on? Obviously, to me, again, it's my view. It's definitely technology. Technology is the future. You will find a job. I can almost guarantee that if you get into technology, you will find a job. If you know about digital, if you know about commerce, if you know about data, if you know about blockchain, if you know about tech, right, you will find a job. Right. Other jobs I don't know, but technology is in a very high demand right now, because all the companies are trying to transform, right? And the transformation actually goes through digital transformation, technology, new business models, innovations, and that's what a lot of companies are looking for right now.
How's the importance of people transformation, and what's the essence of the Agile culture?
Right now, because of COVID, I think a lot of the traditional businesses are trying to do this the so-called digital transformation, and that's my area of focus. But the truth is, I think it's a bit of a misleading term, because when you say digital transformation, then yes, obviously you focus on digital. But the biggest challenge that you will find in digital transformation is actually people transformation. Because at the end of the day, it's you're still going to need the people to make that happen, and that's the hardest part. That's why so many companies right now are trying to reskill people, are trying to adopt this agile culture. And one thing about agile that I would like to share, it's a lot of people are teaching about agile, and a lot of companies, I think, might look at agile as a methodology, as a process. This is what you have to do to be agile. But the reality is, agile is first and foremost a mindset, right? If you only adopt the process, but you don't change the way you think, it's useless. Being agile is like, I've worked at Google, I've worked at Line. I've never applied an agile methodology, right? Like step by step, like having like a scrum master and then and whatnot. But if you ask me, were we agile? Oh, definitely. It's mindset. It's not the process, but the process and the methodology is here for maybe more traditional companies who are not used to that. It's to help you, to guide you step by step. But the more important part is, how do you change the way you think? So let me give you a very simple example. What's one of the biggest hurdle is decision making, right? How long do you take to make decisions, right? Do you take what's your typical lead time in your organization? Are you counting in months, right? So how do you become Well, that's being agile. It's like, how do we make decisions faster? How do we change faster, right? Or if you do, if you're trying to build a new service, right? The the typical way is like, oh, we need to be ready, because if we're not ready, customers are going to complain, the partners are going to complain. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to take you 12 months, 24 months, 2 years, and you will find out like at the end of the 12 month that, oh, it doesn't work, right? So that's the traditional way. The agile way is to say, doesn't matter, let's launch as fast as we can and learn from that, and even if it's not perfect, right? So that, that's a simple example of being agile. It's like, how do you become like, how do you test and learn, how do you become iterative, and rather than waiting for a long time to find out that what you've been thinking is completely wrong, right? And that's one example of being, being agile. Uh-huh. How do you work together better and not in silos? So these are some of the big challenges that big companies, or even traditional companies in general, would face. And I talk about people transformation. Just don't forget that the saying goes, saying people make the dream work, right? And you need, how do you transform your organization, your team, to think very differently from before. And I'll tell you this, and every time I talk about this, everyone like expects a recipe. What's step number one, step number two, step number three. If there was such a thing, everyone would be successful by now, right? So realize this: if it was this simple, I don't think we would even be talking about it. It's hard. Nah, it's fun. It's easy to tell you stories, but it's super hard to make that happen, because at the end of the day, it comes back to people.
Okay, so people and mindset also very important. How do you foresee technology digital trend in the next 5 to 10 years?
10 years, honestly, I don't know. I think it moves too fast to be able to predict 10 years. I think 3 to 5 years, more predictable maybe, but 10 years, I don't know. I can't tell you. But right now, if you look at what are sort of the big trends, obviously, I really believe like electric vehicles and whatnot, or renewable energy. It's a big trend. It's happening. It's definitely happening. Health tech, ed tech, blockchain, IoT, robotics. So I think these are quite sort of clear trends that you see out of COVID. Health for obvious reason, education because right now we all at home. My kids have been like they in the other room right now doing their online learning. So COVID has sort of helped. Well, help might not be the right word, but is accelerating some of these trends. Blockchain, crypto. I mean, you've seen like anyone who's in crypto. Probably last night you've seen like last night was crazy because you had like some meme coins launching. These are things that are happening right now, right? And it's not, the trends are. I don't think the trends are so important because it's honestly it's not hard to see trends. Every year, at the beginning of every year, someone is going to tell you, like not someone, but everyone is going to tell you about trends, right? I think the question is, what do you do about that? And the answer is you tend to do nothing about that. So fix this first. That's my biggest piece of advice. One of the reasons why, a lot of corporations have been talking about transformation for 5 or 6 years, right? But have done very little. And when COVID hit, then we were not ready. I don't want to be critical, but that's the reality. You had like 5 or 6 years to prepare for that, but it wasn't prioritized as it should have been, and that's that's where we are now. So that, I think that's the big lesson to remember from, as a business, from COVID, and not to repeat that again. So when you look at these trends, when you see these things that you don't understand, it's like, well, you have to learn from you have to learn, you have to understand, like, how is that going to impact your business? How can you leverage some of these trends to build something new, right? And the other thing that is important to understand is, right now everything seems to be moving like very fast, but I guarantee you see nothing, because what we've seen right now, we're still only scratching the surface. It's, if you think about it, like, like social networks, like content services, this is what the internet has brought, right? It has brought like access to information. It has connected the entire world. Now that the world is connected, we're going to move up. We're going to shift a few gears and get into, like, like more, very different, deeper, deep tech, blockchain, crypto. This is going to transform the world in ways that I think we don't realize yet. When I said, like, last night, if anyone like is investing in crypto, you look at the money that was in the market last night, it was like tens of trillions of dollars. I was like, I mean, do you realize what it means? It's not small anymore. It's actually massive. Can you imagine, like, what would happen, you know and 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 if you look at these investment, obviously high risk, these are high risk investment. But think about this. Today, if you have money, right, where are you going to invest your money? Put it in the bank and get what? Get single, like, very low percent return? Or are you going to slice a chunk of it and say, well, why don't I put it in crypto, and maybe, I could make like 10x, 20x, 50x my investment? Think about this. And if more and more people think that way, what happens? Well, the money, the money, there's a finite amount of money. That money is going to shift, right? From the markets, or from traditional means of investment, to the digital world, right? This is like, and that, I'm just giving you an example because it just, I was looking at the numbers last night. I was like, wow, this is crazy what's happening. I'm sure, like, a lot of people don't even understand what I'm saying, because you might not follow that. But my key point is, if you think things are moving fast, it's going to move even faster once a lot of these technologies are scaling. Yeah.
Okay. Phi, why did you establish the Transformational?
So Transformational is my own business that I started during during COVID, and it was sort of born out of COVID, because when COVID happened, Transformational was born of two things. One, from me leaving my previous job, where I was mentioning that I was not successful at transforming the company. Two, because during COVID, I think everyone is trying to transform right now. So I saw that as as an opportunity to help to build a business, but also to help companies do the so-called digital transformation. And my focus is I try I'm not pretending to try to solve all the problems. I really focus on when I talk about digital transformation, I try to help companies build a new service, a new business, and not so much touch the people side of it, because people takes a lot more effort, a lot more time, and it's not to say I don't. It's not important. It is very important, but I think I prefer to focus on business building. How do we build the business? Because I think that's what like CEOs and large companies want to see. They've seen the impact of COVID to the bottom line, and the focus right now is how can we develop new businesses in non-core areas, and that's where I focus on.
Even though it is no silver bullet for transformation, could you please give some advice for corporate to start or prepare and set realistic goals?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's honestly it's for digital transformation. I'm not the way I look at transformational. It's I don't have a recipe for you, right? I'm going to tailor my approach to your business. I'm more of a tailor than than anything else. But the way to think about digital transformation is, first of all, you need to identify where is the next opportunity going to come from that is not from your existing business. What is it that you want to build? It's digital transformation. It's not a goal in itself. What do you want? The question is, what do you want to transform for? Why do you want to transform? Right? What's your vision? What's the end goal? What's the business you want to? What's the next business that you want to build? I think that's number one. Identify this first. Because without it, why do you want to transform? So I think it's that would be my one piece of advice is, let's not talk about just digital transformation. Digital transformation is just a path, a way to get you to where you need to get. But what's the end goal? What's the end game? What's the business you want to build? Yeah.
Okay. พี่หมีคะ what's the next big things in your life? What would you like to see it happen in business or our country, and how do you plan to achieve that?
So I think it's a bit of a sensitive topic. So I believe I'm a believer in the potential of our country. Because I think Thailand has a lot working in its favor, but also has things that don't work in its favor. But as a country, first of all, if you talk to anyone outside of Thailand, everyone loves Thailand. So that's a fact, right? So what it means is that we have Thailand as a country has the ability to attract people. So, and obviously tourism has been a big part of our GDP, and the fabric of the country. But today, I think is how do we not just attract people? How do we attract businesses to Thailand? Especially, how do we build and attract tech talents to come to the country, base in Thailand, help us. Uh, and that's, if you look at a country like Singapore, for instance, Singapore has it's an island. It's a very small island of 4 million people, but they have done a great job at becoming the center of Southeast Asia and attracting all the headquarters to Singapore. My question is, why not Thailand? Right? People would love to be based here. So what is it that we're not doing right to attract these companies, these talents, and and to the country? Right? So I'm not going to touch on politics, but I think that there are things that we we definitely, I think we all know that we need to change and do better at. And the other thing that that is probably that we need to change is, well, first of all, we need to speak English. We need to speak Chinese, right? Because that's the business language. And it sounds like so obvious, but when you go to Singapore, whichever country you come from, you will be able to live not just your personal life but your work life there, right? Which is still a bit of a which is still a weakness. So these are some of the fundamentals to fix beyond beyond the politics and the policies, which we also need to do a better job at. So it's sensitive. let's not get political.
Okay. Okay. Quý vịคะ, this is my last question. Any key takeaway for our OPEN-TEC audience?
So for me, it's very very simple. If you look at the current situation right now, there is a clear urgency for businesses, but also for us as individuals to change, to learn, new skill sets, to make sure that you as an individual, you stay relevant, right? Because I guarantee you, like I said, today, if you know about digital commerce, blockchain, tech, data, you will find a job. I guarantee that, not just today, but in the future. So just think about that. It's if you don't know about these things, then make sure you go and learn about these things. Technology, you cannot avoid it. There's no way you can avoid it. We live in an era that is where technology is ruling right now, right? So if there's one thing you need to learn about, it's that. And technology, again, it's very vast. There's a lot of areas. And it's not just about becoming a developer, but it's like it's business model, it's data, there's a lot of things in this space, right? Technology is very vast. So pick one area and or many, but learn. Right now we all stuck at home. Good time to open up YouTube and pick a topic. You don't know about crypto? Well, go into YouTube. Lots of content, right? You want to learn. You want to learn about EV. Same. Everything is there for you to learn. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is Kun Ariya Banomyong, the CEO and founder of Transformational. I'm sure that you learned a lot from him. And thank you very much, Bibi, for your kind presence today.
ยินดีครับ Thank you very much for having me. Stay
ค่ะ
safe นะครับ everyone.
Okay, you too. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
ครับ
Bye bye. สวัสดีค่ะ Thanks all the audience for being with us. If you like us, don't forget to click like and subscribe to TCC Technology YouTube channel. See you in our next Open Talk. สวัสดีค่ะ